Hello everyone, this is Tribecast episode 38 and my name is Marina. This week we have prepared for you 2 interviews. First you'll hear Dean DiNardi, who is coaching this week at Nordic Startup School mentoring session, and we will discuss with him marketing. And then we'll talk about startup life and wines with Iñigo Perez from Startup Hub. My name is Marina, this is Tribecast episode 38. Let's get to the interviews.
My name is Dean DiNardi, mentor and startup consultant. I specialize in communications.
Right, communications, so we're colleagues.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How was your today's session and what was it about?
It was about communications, generally how valuable communications is and how it affects not just pitching, but sales, team morale, and company direction in regards to funding, pitching, sales, marketing, and how the arena of communications should be a primary focus of development to help companies grow.
So do you actually find it hard? You said that you're a coach, so do you find it hard to explain to, say, IT startups, why do they need to communicate besides producing a good product?
So what I've done is I've come up with an idea, a concept called verbal marketing. And I call verbal marketing as the language of attraction. By introducing this to IT specialists, research specialists, and people of that nature from a language of attraction perspective and bringing value out, what it does is they see another perspective of how there's value in their products or research and how to better represent it. So at first initial impact, yes, they're a little bit offset, but when I introduce this new perspective of using communication, they see how they can extract the value and better represent it, so they become a little bit more warmer to the idea of communicating.
How familiar are you with Finnish market?
Probably not as familiar as I should be, being that I've only been here for about 5 years, but familiar enough to know that it's a very tough market. It's a very challenging market. There's a lot of things that have been going on in the outside in the EU and greater parts of the other rest of the world that are relatively new here. So there's a learning curve. There's definitely a learning curve, but there's a will.
Yeah, Finnish people are famous about their will. Here they call it sisu. I would like to remind our listeners that Nordic Startup School is mostly targeted as helping startups promoting themselves to the US market and expanding their businesses to the US market, right? So my core question is, what are the main differences between US and Finnish market from the perspective of a startup?
Sure. The biggest difference is that in the US market, we buy things reflective of product value in our lives. We do a lot of marketing and sales, whereas the Finnish market is more of a need-to market, whereas their purchasing habits are based on needs, not whether it's going to just add the value or not. It's a necessity market, and I guess that would be the biggest thing. So the way that it's represented here versus there is very different. And
also, again, it's maybe a bit of a cultural difference and even a bit of a misperception. Let's put it this way, because I tapped a better word. We do believe that American business people are good at bragging, while Finnish people are kind of shy in a sense that they will prefer to produce something of high quality and then do a really advertising.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you say that, because we had a whole session about, we call tooting your own horn. And you really have to have some bragging rights. But I say that you have to brag and toot your own horn in a valuable manner, meaning that you also have to represent your self-worth and self-value. And it's not enough just to think it. You have to actually voice it and represent it so that others can see that you believe in your product or service and that you will stand behind it. No matter what. So having that self-worth and self-value, not only for yourself as an individual and expressing it, but also that that's the backbone of the company, and the company will stand behind as well. You need to be able to stand up and say, we can support this, we are this, we do this, we can do that, or I am capable of. And you have to know where your self-worth and self-value is and own it. You really have to own it. And we spoke about that today, how a lot of Finnish people are a little bit reserved in the expression of it. They may believe that about themselves, but they don't express it. And I believe that in order for it really to manifest into action, not only for individuals, but also as a company in the development, you have to be able to express it at some level.
Do you think it's necessary to have someone from the outside, in this case from the US market, in the team? Or can we take a Finnish-only team, give them decent coaching, and then go conquer US market?
I think if you had an all Finnish team, it's okay. However, the coaching is really important. And they would really have to understand the differences, and you would have to have more of a global or international mindset in the Finnish people who are in the Finnish team. In that regard, yes, it would work. I've seen too many all Finnish teams that kind of stop when they get to the border. Like a lot of fear, apprehension, things, questions, doubts, too many things set in. And then I've seen all Finnish teams where some of the team leaders have more of an international mindset and can see beyond the fears, apprehension, see beyond the border, and they've gotten the right guidance, are willing to learn from the guidance, and then that can work. But the key, I think, is in getting the information, education, the guidance, the coaching, whatever's necessary, and being open to it.
How do you actually figure out if the coach is good or not? Say I'm an early stage startup and I would like to join one of those numerous acceleration programs.
I think that for you to identify if a coach is good, it's a personal thing, but also too, as a good coach will challenge your current state. They're going to force you to learn something new, but they won't insist that it's the only way. Because a good coach knows that there's many ways for things to be done. However, they know that you have more potential than you might be giving out, and they will help you to nurture your potential instead of insisting on it being done a certain way.
So if someone keeps telling that I'm doing it this way and you should do it this way because this is the way it should be done, this is not a good one.
Generally speaking, no. I mean, there are some, you cross a T and you dot an I. Certain things are, either work or don't work. But when it comes to international markets and relating to people and communicating and approaching it from the right perspective, I think it's a little bit less of the crossing the T and dotting the I's.
Right. And probably I have one last question for today. In Nordic Startup School, we have startups which are a little bit more advanced. Then we have Red Brick Accelerator here in Tampere Startup Community, within the community, which is early stage mentoring program. And for some of the startups, it's still kind of safer to join an accelerator when they're in an early stage. But if they, for example, exist like 1-2 years, they start to be hesitant whether they still can learn something. Do you think it's still of value?
I mean, if they can learn something, you should never stop learning. So even if you're in business for 50 years, there's got to be something that you can learn. So for somebody that's only been around for 2 years to say that there's nothing that they feel that they can learn is very naive and immature in their mindset on business development. And I think that they need to be a lot more open to accepting that there is other things they can learn, provided those incubators and those teaching platforms provide high level value. Because that's also very important. There needs to be a variety and high level value of coaching in order for people to continue to learn.
Shall we recommend Nordic Startup School as one of the platforms?
Of course.
Right.
It was great working with you guys. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for having time for this interview. And we're good for today. Have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
Tribecast.
Let me remind our listeners that Tribecast core idea is to talk about startups and startup life and startup ecosystem, first in Tampere, then in Finland, and then in the world around. So when you talk about startup ecosystem, you can't avoid talking to startups. And I started to feel that we didn't have enough startups recently. So I decided to fix this situation. Therefore, today we have a representative of a startup, and I see from his face that he's going to say, I don't know if we're a startup or not. And we already had this discussion off the microphone, but let's share it with our listeners. So hello, Inigo.
Hello.
Probably let's first introduce you to our listeners.
Okay, so my name is Iñigo Perez. I'm from Spain, 28, and I'm one of the owners and founders of Binum. Now we call ourselves to our clients Nordbean. And we are a startup or a small company that we are importing alcohol to Finland.
All right. So, are you a startup or not? How do you define a startup? Let's start from this point.
I don't know. I've always have the feeling that startups are more into the technological side in a fast-growing path. So I don't really mind myself the terminology of my company, but I've really not considered myself or my company as a startup. I consider myself an entrepreneur, but not startup. And for example, when I go to some of the startup events, you always get the feeling that you're a bit kind of the outsider because most of the subjects are related to technology.
All right. So there is no way technology can be involved in wine importing.
Oh yes, of course there is. There is many ways you can incorporate technology into the wine business or alcohol business. But I guess that for the business that I do, technology that you could say is more something into the web or internet related stuff than to my daily business.
Right. How did you actually end up being part of the community? Because I see you quite often at Tribe Tampere events and Startup Hub events. So what brings you here?
Well, at the beginning, I was working from home, but I met this other Spanish person that he was involved with JCI, which I'm part of it now as well. And he got me involved in JCI, and through JCI, I get to know Tribe. And also through JCI and this person, I get to know the Startup Hub, where I do have my office at the moment.
And you still feel that you don't really, so to say, belong there? Is it more like you just have your own business, but guys are talking about their tech stuff and you're just...
I don't think that it's not that I don't belong there. I see it more as I'm a different or the special kid. But since part of my background has been in the tech world, before I got into the wine world, then I don't feel that much outside of it because I kind of get what they are doing, or I kind of understand the processes they're going through. So,
actually, what stimulated you to jump into wine instead of tech?
Okay, so I moved into wine or alcohol beverages because I have some non-alcoholic beverages as well. Just because my family, my mom's side family, they have had for decades business in distributing beverages to restaurants in the west part of Spain. So I've been working with them, not working really, but helping them many summers of my life. So that was some kind of inherit and learn experience that I had. After I stopped working for a video game company here in Tampere, I was looking for something that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to do games, but I was not feeling or getting exactly what I really wanted. And one of the options that I had was leaving Finland, but the reason that I moved to Finland is because of my now wife. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't or I didn't want to leave anymore. My option was... just, I needed to do something, and the other thing that I knew how to do, apart from video games, was selling wine. So I was really unhappy of the wine that I was finding in some of the bars in Tampere, so I was like, well, maybe I should give it a try.
You know what I would also think you might give a try? It was just announced this morning officially that Tampere will have its, I think it's the first ever actually, food tech hackathon.